This podcast is brought to you by Firehouse Subs, the firefighter-founded hot sub chain with a passion for hearty and flavorful food, heartfelt service, and public safety. Ready for your next mission? Firehouse Sub is offering firefighters the opportunity to continue serving after service, now as a restaurant owner. Learn more at www.firehousesubsfranchising.com. Welcome to Talkin Tactics, live from FDIC. I am David Polikoff. I am happy to be joined by Jason Rivera, Dave McGill, and everybody knows RJ, Robert James.
Oh, hush.
We are here to talk about part 2 of Talkin Tactics, high-risk search. I'm going to throw it right to RJ.
Before we do that, can we address the fact that Dave should be doing commercials?
Definitely.
Dave should definitely be doing commercials.
You got that commercial voice.
As long as it's
I'll
on
put you
radio.
in.
I have a face for radio.
Hey, it's so cool to be back at FDIC. It's so cool to be doing a podcast. And I think it's cool that we're going to hit part 2 of what we started with high-risk searches. And I thought it was pretty cool that we could do it here at FDIC, especially segueing into Jason's class. Also having Dave here. I think it was just an awesome honor that we could actually pull this off. I think it's pretty cool that today we're going to hit talking about a few things, I think, with some of the important things as it relates to search. Training being of the utmost importance. The mindset that you have to have when it comes to searching. And I think that will also hit on, view from a command point. We do have chief officers up here. I think that's good, and then we're getting into a little bit of tactics as it relates to search. We got 50 minutes, so let's hit it. I want to talk about training, and I'll throw it at you, Dave, real quick. What do you think is some of the important aspects of training when we talk about searching and high-risk search? Like, how do people prepare for these calls in training to be ready for game day?
So whenever you talk about it, like, it doesn't just happen, right? Like, whenever we pull up on a residential structure, we don't just get out and just naturally know, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and it doesn't happen unless we go back and we train. And it has to happen at that company level, at a department level. So I know in my department, we try and do it on just about every training session that we do. We throw some type of search tactic into it, right? Whether you're searching for the seat of the fire, whether you're searching for victims, what is that search that you're doing? What are you ultimately trying to accomplish? And then are your people trained, and do they have the tools in order to be able to accomplish that mission? So I think it has to start back on the floor, right? It has to start at the company level. As a department, you can only do so much, right? And we look at our fire schools. You're bound, you're hand-tied with content hours, right? Like, I can only work a person for 8 hours a day. So I can only do so much at the training academy. So that has to, in turn, go back down to that company level, and they have to turn around and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't require you to be in a training building every day, but it does require you to put some type of mindset and some type of skill into that training facet that you're looking for. So.
What about y'all?
So I'm a big crawl, walk, run guy. And I believe that new firefighters need to be indoctrinated into, basic search tactics. What are they? And then we progress with the level of realism beyond that. I think one of the biggest issues we have in the fire service right now is the search culture kind of ends at that basic level where we're taught to search an empty room with no furniture, no smoke, ducks in a row, not covering a large area with a limited number of people. And then when we translate that to real life, you're entering dwellings with, we don't know the layout, conditions are, we all know what the conditions are like, and we're expected to get in there and quickly and efficiently search that entire building to find civilians. If we haven't practiced like we're going to play, it's not going to be a successful mission at the end of the day.
The circus mindset, right? The circus mindset doesn't work whenever you go into a residential structure with furniture there, right? You go into the burn building. I say the circus mindset. It's the elephant, right? Trunk to tail. Or someone sitting there holding on to my ankle, and like in fire school, right? You had to hold on to that. Yeah. Oh, we got to make contact with the person. Well, no, guess what? You got all these tools spread out. Like, you can search a room so much faster if people just spread out, right? But the circus is over, right? Like, let's stop. It's furniture in there, and it's going to look like a circus because now everybody's tripping over, and we become, little clumsy mutts at that point in time.
One of the things that we talked about with the high risk search, and I'll be the first to admit it, we talked about it last month. The vent enter isolate search. I would always say, well, that's once, maybe twice a career. But as we've progressed forward, as these fires are burning quicker, as we're putting more people through the front door, and even Mike Champo said it today at the opening ceremony. If you're going through the front door, trying to get past the engine company to go search these upper levels, you're going to be playing catch up, and you're probably going to be finding, not survivors as opposed to finding viable victims. So this high rescue search of getting on ladders, getting into the room, isolating, and doing that search. And like you said, Dave, you cannot be holding on to each person's boot and expect to search the perimeter of the room and totally miss the end or the middle of the room. And then to your point, Jason, and this is something that RJ and I have harped on, if you are training for search and rescue, and you're searching an empty room, you are doing your people a disservice. You have to make it real life. You have to be able to trip over couches and chairs and clutter if it's on the floor. And then we talked about it last month, the vent enter search we did in Frederick, that you guys outfitted this particular room with more toys than I'd ever seen on any of my kids' rooms.
Yeah.
That made it real life.
Yeah, and I want to put a little attention on that as Jay brought that up, and I want to put attention on it for those that are listening on how we actually do that. It's inevitable wherever we go. We're going to get a concrete building. It's going to be empty. And we're tasked with teaching people search. One of the things that we do, and I implore anybody who's listening or watching how to execute this. I don't care what city we go to. What's the first place we go to when we get there?
Goodwill. And Home Depot.
Goodwill, Home Depot, right? And it's easy, right? We can go to Goodwill. We can, for dollars to pennies, go get truckloads full of stuff that we can outfit a structure to give people a realistic look at search. And I tell you, at our training academy in Frederick, we have bins in our apartments. We fill them with toys, and we go in there. We take the bins, and we can dump all the toys on the floor. We can set the beds up. Here's another one that we do that we don't really talk about a lot is we get comforters. We put comforters on the beds to make the rooms look realistic. When you're doing training, we want to try to make it as realistic as possible. Being able to have the ability to mentally, prepare yourself for the calls. Another thing that we do for those listening, a tip if you would, we go to Marshalls, Ross, TJ Maxx, those kind of places, especially around Christmas time when all the dolls are out. We like to buy the dolls and get lifelike dolls. And then we would literally cut the backs of the dolls open, take the stuffing out, put a brick in it, put the stuffing back in, and now you have somewhat of a realistic weight of a baby for search. We take those babies with us everywhere we go. So I wanted to just put a little attention on those points that you guys brought up, and for those listening, how they can do these things at home. And I think it's a pretty good transition actually to or segue from talking about training into the mindset that we have to have. I think training goes hand in hand with mindset. If we have a good mindset, transitioning to training and training back to the fire ground, I think that's how it should be. So let's talk about the mindset. And I know, Jason, this is one of your big things that you like to talk about, and you're actually doing a class here at FDIC talking about the mindset. So let's get into the mindset a little bit about search.
All right, so the program I'm teaching here at FDIC is the Rescue Company Firefighter, and essentially it is broken into 3 parts. First part of the class is discussing the mindset, what I'm going to get into now. Once we get through that mindset part, which mindset consists of your attitude, your experience, how you come into work every day, how you respond to calls every day, where your head's at, etc. Once we get through the whole mindset part, then we're going to get into some tactics. We get into conducting the primary search, the variety of options. I don't try and sell people on one over the other. I just kind of put it all out there, give the positives and negatives to each, although I am a big fan of window-initiated searches, or VES. We talk about a lot of the pluses and minuses because there are many departments out there that's not really a thing for them. Maybe it's something they should look at. And then the last part of the program is we get into down firefighter removal. Different options we have, a lot of the old school ways we have taught this historically. There are better ways out there. There's equipment out there that can help us, and there is removal techniques we teach without any equipment that just seem to work a lot better to reduce that time to get that brother or sister out of the house. But in terms of the mindset, so I don't believe that you should graduate basic firefighter or firefighter 1 training and be thrust into conducting a primary search by yourself, your first day in the firehouse. It's something we need to work up to. We're operating without the protection of a hose line. We're near or above the fire. And we're in, like I said earlier, buildings that we've never been in before with limited to no visibility. So the possibility of getting turned around, lost, disoriented, et cetera, is pretty high. Primary search and down firefighter removal are two of the most dangerous things that we do. So we should have some level of comfort with operating in a smoke-filled, heat-filled environment. But all of that can kind of be brought back to, how we carry ourselves in and around the firehouse on a daily basis. For truck companies that search, for rescue companies that search, it really doesn't matter what app. You could be on an ambulance. If your job is to conduct that primary search on arrival, you need to have your head in the right place, meaning coming to work every day, ready to work, being a go-getter, being aggressive, consistently and constantly learning. When we get to come to these conferences like FDIC, we're preaching to the choir, more or less, because most of these people here are either here on their own dime or here on their own time, and they're the go-getters. The problem is, many others don't have that same mindset. There are some things we can't overcome. People who are just downright lazy, people who can't pick up certain mechanical aptitude type skills. They may be better suited. There's a place in the fire service for everybody. But maybe conducting that primary search without the protection of a hose line, and maybe even on a solo search, it might not be for them. Right. So having that proper mindset, in that class we get pretty deep into it, and I tie it all kind of into a real life circumstance that I experienced about a year ago. We had a pretty significant fire in a dwelling that was under construction. Middle of the day, daytime fire. I work with a group of guys that are phenomenal. Into the job, experienced go-getters, constantly learning. One guy kind of got separated from the crew. It was a wind-driven fire. It took off. He ended up sustaining 2nd and 3rd degree burns. But because of his experience level, he was able to get himself out of that jam. And, he missed a couple weeks, couple months of work, and he was back at it. You take a person who, hey, this is their first fire, it could have been a completely different circumstance. So having that proper mindset on how you guys feel about it, but we got to be, we want the go-getters being the ones doing those searches.
I agree. I just want to tack on with that whole mindset. Everything you said, 100%. We just had a fire in Frederick I'll talk a little bit about. You go to work, when you get dispatched for a fire, you have to be in the mindset that you are going to rescue somebody, which means you're going in at 100%. You don't just say, oh, it's a vacant structure, there's not going to be anybody there. Somebody can be in any building at any time, and I'll transition into the call that we just had a few weeks ago. This was an outbuilding, like an old barn, and in a rural area. We pulled up, the first 2 units on the scene was a truck and a rescue squad, and then I pulled in behind them, and the entire building was well involved. And we were told that there might be somebody in there. You would have never thought, if we weren't told that there would be somebody in there. And we had to get a handle on this fire, get it knocked back enough that those crews could go inside, and they made a grab. That person was in there, and you would look at it, and this was a 30 by 60 tool shed, but somebody was living in there. So the mindset is that if you get dispatched for a fire, your mindset should be that you're going to rescue somebody. And those buildings are occupied until we say they're not. So.
Yeah, I'll tag on that with the mindset thing. Sometimes, and we talk about this in our Search Essentials class, that sometimes you can fall into a complacent zone. When you go to box alarms every day and you always go there with the thought process that it's going to be a working fire, it's going to be somebody trapped, and every time you get to the box, it's not a working fire. There's nobody trapped. It's not. You get that over and over and over again. You can fall into a bad cycle. And I tell people this all the time. You have to force yourself to not be complacent. And that is a mindset. I had a situation, the fire we had in the auto body shop. We had a fire in the auto body shop. It was midnight. We all know the shop closes at 5 p.m. Most of the time they hang around for another hour or two after the shop closes. But it's midnight. And we went in and, we had a good fire in the office part of the shop. But never once did we think that there would be an apartment within the auto body shop. And I'll be honest with you, I missed that. I missed out myself. And that was a gut check for me. Luckily, nobody was in that apartment. But that was a gut check for me that just because people, or just because we don't live like that, doesn't mean that people don't live like that. And again, it's very easy to fall into a complacent zone. And I implore everybody listening, watching, make sure that when you feel like you're getting in that zone where you're starting to get complacent, you're starting to half-ass the search, you're not fully running your hands across the bed, you get to the point where you take a tool and you poke the bed, you're starting to fall into a complacent zone and a complacent mindset. And you need to bring yourself out of that and remind yourself that there's a reason why we're here, there's a reason why we're tasked with this task, and I need to carry it out all the way. I mean, what's your thoughts, Dave? We've been friends for years. We share the same mind. But
we go back. Here's my number one takeaway from this whole mindset, right? High risk, low frequency. High risk, low frequency is always going to breed a level of complacency. So in order for us to change that mindset, we've got to get out of the complacent factor, right? Let's face it, today's fire service, depending on where you are, we're not going to fires every day.
Right.
We run a lot of box alarms, but it smells and bells, right? So what is that doing? That's adding into that bad mindset, that bad culture of, I've seen some departments, they go out and they're like, oh yeah, we go to this building all the time, and they're not dropping hose in the street. They're not doing it, they're not throwing ladders. Well, you're like, well, it was just an AFA. But that mindset has to be, we're going to operate, we're going to go through the motions every call like it was the real call until we clear it, right? So high frequency has got to be the mindset and the mode that we operate in. Like, it's got to be there. No matter if it's an AFA at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or if it's that residential structure fire that comes out, or apartment building that comes out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody is now saying, oh yeah, our mindset's going to change then, but it's not changing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So that mindset has got to be the same all the way around. And when we look at that, how do we perform? So what's our physical standpoint? I just hooked in and been doing a lot of stuff now with biometrics and mechanics and functioning, because we say we want to do these searches, we say we want to be involved in these Maydays, but how bad does our body decline once we get that initial adrenaline rush? And now we actually go in. You think about it, most Maydays, we hurt our own brothers and sisters worse than the incident itself by trying to get them out of that Mayday. And it's all because of the muscle memory, the biometrics, the body function that starts to break down as we perform. So I think all of that goes into our mindset culture whenever we're looking at how we're going to perform these high-risk searches and how we're going to be able to perform at the end of the day whenever the call is for one of our own or the people that we're all sworn to protect and serve for.
100% agree with you, and fortunately or unfortunately, this mindset of primary search, a lot of it comes down to the culture of that department specifically. I've been involved or worked for departments that primary search is a priority. It gets done immediately at every fire. No questions asked. If it doesn't get done, there's going to be a lot of questions asked when the chief's like, why the hell didn't this get done quickly? And then I've been involved in other fire departments where search is almost an afterthought. Fire's under control, smoke is lifted. Oh, hey, how about we take a walk through the building and look for victims? Well, you know what? At that point, if somebody was trapped, it's too late. And it comes back to the culture of that department. We need to, and I think it's getting better as a whole across the country, looking at all these Facebook groups, teaching, in a lot of different places. I think guys and girls' eyes are getting open to the need for this aggressive search culture to be the standard, not like the exception to the rule.
Yeah,
I think whenever you look at it, the number one that I hate the most is the lazy search, right? Mm-hmm. When the first company officer gets there and somebody comes in and they're like, oh yeah, everybody's out of the house. And you're like, yeah, who said that? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
What's their connection to the house? You're just taking somebody's information that's standing out in the front yard, and we automatically assume that it's the resident of that structure, right? But it could be the next door neighbor from 4 houses down. And it's like, yeah, everybody's car's gone. There's nobody here. But, you know, I'm not going to try and drop a dime on myself. But like back in the day, I played hooky from school, right? I slid in through the basement door sometimes. So maybe no one knew that I came in through the basement door, you know. I may or may not have some company with me. But, you know, nobody knows. Nobody knows that. So it's not clear until we as the fire department say that it's clear.
Yeah.
And that's through our searches.
And to tackle on what Jason said, you know, how much of a priority do you put on search? I retired from Montgomery County. When we rewrote our incident response policy, it was the number one thing on your initial on-scene report for the first 2 companies. What is the status of the occupants? And if it isn't called, that battalion chief's on the radio saying, hey, what is the status of the occupants? From a command standpoint, take a look at the tactical worksheet. Where is the primary search box reminder located? If it's not on the top line, then you're not looking at it as a priority.
Let me ask you this. Let's get off script for a second. Where do you think, or why do you think search has become such a hot topic in the last 1, 2? I feel like, you know, I've been in the fire service for 23 years, and I feel like search has been a hot topic in the last 2 years. Why do you, and where do you think that came from? Why do you think it's been a thing?
I think it's an economical thing where you have more people in single-family dwellings. You just don't have that 4-person family. It might be 8. You might have the grandparents. So when you're actually looking at these single-family homes, they could be subdivided into apartments. We've talked about on last month's show with the large Victorian homes in downtown Rockville, which are, you know, turned into apartments. People trying to make a little bit more money or get a little bit more money. They're renting out rooms and things like that. So it's no longer just a family, a single family in a single family house. It's multiple people in these houses on top of the vacants. Vacants aren't vacant anymore. Abandons aren't vacants anymore. You know, I think a lot of it comes from that. That we're putting a lot more emphasis, as we should. We should put a lot more emphasis on search.
What about you? Why do you think search has been such a hot topic in the last 2 years?
I mean, I agree, and to piggyback, I would also say time of day doesn't really matter anymore. Since COVID, how many people work from home? They're always home.
Yep.
Oh, maybe I want to take a little nap during the day. Now I got somebody sleeping in a bedroom at 2 in the afternoon. I would say that, as well as if you look at fire growth, how quickly fires are growing, how quickly they're flashing over. People don't have time to evacuate anymore. And I think as a fire service, we're recognizing, it is much more likely you're going to get trapped in a fire today than it was 20, 25, 30 years ago, just because of how quickly fires are growing.
I mean, I think we go back to the public announcements, right? We're telling people close the doors, right?
Yeah.
We're giving all of this, you know, public information out to the citizens. So
I think you're going right exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, on our end, right?
Yep.
If we're sending that message out and we're telling people, hey, close your doors, you know, we just saw this, right? We just saw this in a couple of minutes ago. You know, the searchable space, right? So we look at vacants. Okay, well, yeah, somebody's in a vacant, right? We know that that's always going to happen, especially in today's society, today's economy, right? That's going to be more of a thing that we're going to see in the fire service now. So I think when we look at that and we look at our COVID errors, right, we look at more people that are working from home, hopefully as company officers, they've been doing their due diligence and they're doing their homework and saying, hey, now is the time more so than ever that we need to get in and making sure that we're searching these residents because people are home. You know, teleworking is there. Like, you know, you have departments that put that into their manuals as well as, you know, hey, close the door. So if they close the door, they're there. They're there. The documents are there. The stats are there to show that we've made rescues from houses that were fully involved with 1-bedroom door that was closed. You know, so it's there. And I think if we don't pay attention to it and we keep turning a blind eye, we're only doing ourselves a disservice.
I'll tell you what I think. I think it's become such a hot topic in the last couple years. And I think it's because more and more civilians are becoming hip to what we should be doing that maybe we're not doing. And I think that when you look at, scenarios, situations, if you would, across the country where civilians are dying because of mistakes that firefighters make, where they're not making it to the floors to get these searches done. I mean, you look last year, 2024, there was a couple pretty high-profile cases that made national news about firefighters not making the spot. And I think that as civilians become more and more hip to what we should be doing, and in some places maybe we're not doing, I think that is holding firefighters a little more accountable. And with that, I think that it's become such a hot topic now because we, as all of us, fire service leaders, instructors, want to start pushing it to make sure other people understand what we should be doing, where we should be at, and what we should be willing to risk to save a life. That was just a thought that came in my head, and I wanted to get you guys' take on it as to why you think it's been such a hot topic in the last couple of years.
I think social media plays a part in that also.
Oh, yeah.
Because why are these civilians becoming hip to what's going on? They see it on social media. 30 years ago, you didn't know. If I lived in Connecticut, I don't know what's going on in Florida.
Yeah.
I didn't, and on the flip side, you got these Facebook groups like Search Culture and all these that are documenting and putting out there all these grabs that are being made across the country. When I started in the fire service in the mid 90s, I didn't know what the heck was going outside of my couple towns around me. I had no idea what was going on. That now there's grabs being made all over the country. You say, oh, wait a minute, maybe we do need to start doing some aggressive searches.
And to tack on what you said earlier, now these fires are advancing so quickly, we're telling people, close before you doze. So now they're trapped in their rooms because they can't get out into the common hallway because the fire is taking control. So we find these searchable spaces, which is why the 360 is so important. Like we said, we were just sitting in a gentleman's class, and he's like, would you say that this house is well involved, defensive operation? Well, it depends. Yeah. I got to get a 360 to find out what's going on in the back. There may be a searchable space that I can get into that window real quick and knock it out, so I can at least say I gave it my best shot. So.
All right, so I think it's important that we talk about searching from a command standpoint, and I want to hear you guys take Dave, the two Daves, as command officers, what you guys expect out of us firefighters as it relates to search, and some of the things that you are thinking about. I know it's got to be hard as a command officer to be kind of removed from being hands-on, but putting trust into the guys and girls that are doing these tasks of searching. But I would like to hear from you guys from a command standpoint, some of the things that you guys look for, some of the things you guys expect, and some of the things that you guys need from us firefighters industry. We'll kick it over to you, Dave, to start.
One of the things that we talk about in our command workshop is I front my expectations. When I was a battalion chief, I would front my expectations to my company officers, and search was a big part of that. And when a chief officer, when you arrive on the scene and you take that command, that initial command, and I break my fire ground down really quick into groups and divisions. I try to decentralize what I'm doing, making sure that I'm giving the pieces out to the units that are there. So if I make you Division 1, I've already front-loaded that you're responsible for RECOVS. That's the acronym that we most use in the fire service, and the R is for rescue. So I know that my captains and lieutenants know what the priorities are. So when I call back and say, give me an LCAN, rescue is part of that. Search is part of that. Even if I assign a group to be the search group, they understand that rescue is a big part of it. And like I said earlier, in Montgomery County, when we wrote the policy, it was important to know what the status of the occupants are. We rewrote our structural firefighting policy in Frederick, and that was put in there as well, is the status of the occupants. We put a high emphasis on that. So the expectation is that I need to know what's going on inside that building as from a search component. And it's gotten to the point now where I don't even have to ask what was the results of the primary. They're already giving me that information before I ever ask for it. So I know that it's going. My expectations are being pushed out and they're being followed. So I'll kick it over to you, Dave.
So I think a lot of it, whenever you look at it, when guys show up, as a command officer, it is the most frustrating thing to sit out front and just wait, right? So you're sitting back there and you start playing this playbook in your own head. Like, if I was riding the right front seat, I would be doing this, I would be doing that, right? So now you have to kind of take that back and trust those guys that you have. So I think a lot of it, from my standpoint as a command officer, is trusting the people that we have there on the rigs, right? Knowing who's coming and knowing that this person is going to give you that return. And if they're not, what did we do in training? You know, the fireground is not the time to sit back here and expect us to fix every flaw that we have in the fire service or on that call. But from an incident command standpoint, you want that first due special service to get in there. Like, without talking, they should automatically know. You know, kind of like where I come from, it's second nature. Like, you know, I was fortunate to come up in a good fire department. I've been fortunate to be a part of a fire company now that is very good in tradition as far as getting on the fire ground and being able to perform, getting the job done without anyone being prompted to do that. And then getting that return back to the incident commander. Hey, primaries on the first floor are done. Primaries throughout the structure are done, right? And then the next, if you're there doing that secondary, okay, hey, secondary's done. So I think from an incident command standpoint, what we're looking for is we're looking for people to show up ready to work. Ready to work, knowing what your building construction is. Not worrying about, like, you know, well, if I do this, is the incident commander going to say this about me? Or am I going to be, you know, once this call is over, are we going to bring people to the tailboard? Like, we have to have those tailboard critiques once that incident's over to say, hey, what we're doing, did we accomplish that mission? And if it wasn't, hey, this is where we need to be going on the next run. Or starting in the firehouse, hey, I need to make sure that you guys understand this is our role. This is our responsibility whenever we pull up as that rescue squad or as that truck company, and we're there to perform that search. So I think it all starts back into the firehouse and back at the company level with the expectations and what we're given as chief officers to those crews that we're expecting to show up on the fire ground and be ready to work and be confident that that information that they're giving back to us is really accurate.
And it all comes down to do your job.
That's it.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this, and we usually talk about this when we do, you know, the command class, Dave's command class, and Sam, when they're usually talking about the expectations from the chief level, and I like to throw in the aspect of it from a line officer, a guy, a regular fireman, if you would, a lieutenant on the floor. Some things that I think are helpful in the process to the command officers. One of the things I like to tell other line officers, and maybe I'm giving a secret out here in front of the command guys, but the more you talk to them, the less they talk to me.
To you.
100%. Feed me
I won't
information.
call you if you talk to me.
You feed me information, I will leave you
I
alone.
just talk
As long
to
as you're
you
not lying to me.
and give you some stuff that'll allow you to leave me alone for a little bit. And I think that as a command officer, it's reassuring to hear that, hey, the primary is complete on the first floor. It's negative. I'm going to be moving to the second. I think when you're feeding them information, good information, I think for them as a command officer, it's, all right, we know that got done. We know RJ's crew took care of that. I can check that off. They gave me some more information. They're moving up to the second floor. I know where they're at. I think the more that you feed, as line officers, I think the more that you feed to the command officers, the less, because it never fails, right? A command officer is going to call you when you're in the middle of doing something, your hands are full, or you're trying to navigate a person or personnel into something or doing something. It never fails that they're going to call you when you are busy. And you don't want to be the guy to tell them, wait a second, because they'll probably pull you aside when you get outside.
Hey, RJ, remember when you gave me that return? Like, that return wasn't really accurate, right? Like, you told me that first floor was clear, and I'm like, there was still fire coming out of 6 windows, so I know you didn't get all of those. Thanks for giving me that BS moment right there.
I think the one thing to understand is if, you know, we recognize, you know, incident commanders, chief officers that have been incident commanders for a while, we recognize we did not forget where we came from. We know, and we talk about it in our command under fire class. line officers have a lot of things they're responsible for. It's not like it was 30, 40 years ago. So we know you're busy. So if I call you and say, hey, can you give me an update on the search? And you say, stand by, we're still doing whatever. I know you're going to get back to me. I trust you, and I know you're going to get back to me. I'm not going to get mad, unless you cuss me out on the radio or something like that. But that's, I know to leave you alone. You're getting your job done. But that gives us the comfort that I can move on to the next group, making sure that those tasks are being taken care of or get an update from them, because I know you're doing your search, and that's knowing your crew. How do you know your crew? You got to get out to the firehouses, and you got to meet face-to-face with the guys. Arjun knows this. I like going out and talking to the guys. You just got to make sure that you cut me off so I don't stay all day.
Too long. Don't stay too long. You got to get out, Dave.
And I think some of it is whenever you turn around and you look back at it, and, I had a call where this lady came up, she tapped on the window, and she's like, such and such was in this house. And I look at the person that was in the buggy with me, and I said, what do we get on the search? And they said, oh, it was all clear. And I'm like, why don't you ask them again? And that, as soon as we said it, we're like, command in, truck one, whatever. Give me the status on the search. And they fired back right away, and they were like, we're clear. And I'm like, I'm telling you this.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you try not to pull people out, right? Because everybody's got their fire radio scanners on, and you're like, I'm telling you this from a command point to a company officer. Like, if the incident commander asks you that question 2 or 3 times, we're getting some type of intel from out on the field, from outside of the structure that's saying, hey, what you're telling me isn't necessarily matching what a report that we're getting.
I'm not calling you a liar. I'm
Right.
just saying I don't believe what you're telling me.
Yeah.
So why don't you give me a very fast secondary search?
And on that call, the person, the lady that came over, she was spot on, right? How did we miss this search? The guy was in the front. It was an apartment building. He was right at the front door laying on the couch. The only way they found him, we're in the overhaul phase. The only way they found him was that a person was going to leave out, and their SCBA got caught on his hand. And, once they reached down to remove the mask, they realized, oh, crap, hey, let's talk about this. This is that tailboard critique moment. How do we, when I ask you 3 times, I'm telling you this because I know that somebody's in there, right? And how do we get past this?
What's a command pet peeve? What's a pet peeve of you guys'?
Well, I think Dave just hit it right there. Don't just do hasty stuff just so I don't talk to you no more. We've got jobs to do, so do your job fully and completely, and then give me back factual information. And lazy. You're not moving with a purpose into the structure. The building is on fire. I'm not saying you have to run, but I'm saying that you have to get somewhere with a purpose. And when I see people just kind of standing around in the yard and there's things that need to happen, it just kind of gives me a little bit of an eye twitch.
I think it goes back to what we said earlier. It's just do your job, right? Come on the fire ground and do your job. Don't come in with this complacent mindset or, I see guys get off the rig and they're walking up the street and I'm like, this is going to take very long. If this is the pace that we're moving, we're not giving anybody a chance to win in this whole fight, So, and I think that's what it's about, is do your job, give people that opportunity that we're there to do, right? We're there. Everybody took that oath, whether you're a career volunteer, you took that oath to go in and do your job when the bell rings. So I think that's my biggest thing, is do your job.
And even if you're assigned to the rapid intervention crew, this is the one thing that really sets me off, is when they're not prepared to go in and rescue a brother or sister. They're pissed because they don't get a chance to go in. Not everybody can be on the line that goes in and puts the fire out, but the rapid intervention crew is every bit as important, especially with the way fires go nowadays. If I need to call you to get you in, those guys don't have time for you to get your face piece on, get your gloves, get your Nomex, your helmet. They want you to click in, and they want you to be inside right away. And those are the little things that kind of set me off when you're not ready to do your job. Nobody wants to be the rapid intervention company, but when you need it, it's necessary.
So I got 2 things to add from a command standpoint. So obviously I have limited command experience. I was a volunteer chief years ago, but not often have I been the guy standing outside. The 2 things, though, because I've been involved in many different fire departments that operate differently, 2 things that really help with the efficiency of the search, also from a command standpoint, is having pre-arrival assignments. Kind of like you were saying, Dave, first do special service, this is your job.
Yep.
I've been in departments that have that, and I've been in departments that don't have that. Knowing what your job is based on your order of arrival takes all the questions off the table of what do I do when I get there.
Yeah.
In addition to that, to take it even a step further, is having riding assignments with specific tools and what you do based on what seat you're sitting in. Again, ends that conversation en route to the fire of, oh, hey, boss, what do you need me to do? Well, you're sitting in the iron seat, so I need you to do a primary, whatever. It takes a lot of the questions off the table, and it just helps the company operate more efficiently. From a command standpoint, like we kind of joke around at work, our battalion chiefs and deputy chiefs, I'm not going to say their job's easy, but we are a very SOG-driven department where, based on your order of arrival, it's like reading off a script. You do what you're supposed to do, you do your job, like you said, and usually things go better for us.
Yeah, and I think I can add to anybody listening or watching, all four of us up here have career and volunteer experience with that. We all have volunteer experience where our volunteer companies, it doesn't matter that you're a volunteer, still have predetermined assignments. And I know a lot of times that could be a thing some volunteer companies are afraid of because you have responses from home. You're not sure who you have, who's coming, who's going to be participating in the call. But one of my biggest things is when you have people arriving, when you put your butt in a seat, that seat is responsible for X, Y, Z tasks. So I just wanted to tag on to that because I think we all believe in that. And I think sometimes people don't think that you can do that because you're a volunteer corporation. But again, we all volunteer and corporations that have that as well. So
I just implemented it in my standard home response 600 call a year volunteer department, the town I live in. We've implemented it within the last year. Obviously got a little bit of pushback because it's a change of the way we operate, and firemen don't like change.
Or the way things are.
Or the way things are. We just like to complain. But now that we've been doing it for about a year, I think everybody sees that. You know what? This is beneficial.
It goes back, we call it duties by positions. And whether it's on your status board, here's your riding assignments, and it really plays into the volunteer organization. You might have during the day, you might have your day crew or your duty crew, and you assign the people on the engine of the truck. But at 3 o'clock in the morning on home response, you might not have that A team that rides that truck, and that truck is what's due. That maybe 2-year person is riding in the third seat on the ladder truck, and just to have a little tag that says what the duties by positions are. Hey, you're riding the irons. Your responsibility is forcible entry for the engine company, and you're going to be teaming up with the officer for search and rescue. Now you know what your job is, and the officer doesn't have to be directing traffic while we're going down the road still trying to listen. So duties by position has its place in the fire service, and I've seen people go one step further with actually having labels that are engraved and put into that particular riding position. So when they get out, they're coming out with the right tools. Unless I tell you something different, you have these tools in your hand every single time, and it's key. And I see that transitioning over into the career side as well. Same thing with your status boards. I mean, yeah, you can drop $1,200 for a nice looking status board, but it tells you what your assignment is. So when the tones go off, we're not scrambling around to find out who's riding what piece of apparatus.
So I think one thing to take away, and I had a person I was talking to years ago, and they said, well, we're an incident command driven department. So I'm glad that we're gone away from that in the fire service, because a lot of times people will pull up and they made everyone stage. Even though the first company got there and they said, yeah, we got a house that's on fire, everybody else, they got their fire trucks all nice and clean, and they staged, right? Because the parade will start at some point in time, right? But you talk about SOPs and SOGs, that's the home run. That's the key to it, right? And so when I was having this, and they said, we're always going to be an incident command-driven department. So the very next slot, I put the same thing. The department should consider SOPs and SOGs. And they said, well, if that's in there one more time, you can just stop, right? So I was like, all right, well, I guess this is my key to lead the room. But once you switch to that, it makes your job as the incident commander a whole lot easier. Because if a truck is there or a rescue squad is there, let them do what they're designed to do. Last thing I need is a truck company with a hand line in their hand and ventilation isn't taking place, or the search isn't getting done. So let the companies do what they arrived to do. If they're on an engine company, let them do engine work. If they're on a truck company, let them do truck work. Guess what? If you need more truck people to do truck work, call for more trucks. You know, don't supplement it with an engine company to do truck work. So that's just my
That irritates me with the incident command driven call. I run with jurisdictions where, you know, the first two engines, they do this, but everybody else has to stand by so the incident commander can dole out assignments.
Yeah.
Well, that's crap.
Yeah.
You know, we're firemen, and this is what we do. We have jobs to do. What if that incident commander is coming from a little further away? You know, the incident commander should not be dictating what if you're getting down into that granular level, then there's a trust issue in the fire service. You don't trust your people to do their job, and you need to fix that. The incident commander can't be the guy that says, all right, third due engine company, I want you to do this, and the fourth due, I want you to do this, and then the truck, when you get here, I want you to do this. It's too much talking on the radio. Put your SOPs out there. Here's what I want you to do. If you have to deviate from the SOP, guess what? We're going to allow you to do that. The only thing you got to do is tell us on the radio.
Communicate.
That's it.
The worst thing to hear is engine so-and-so to command, we're approaching, what do you need?
Yeah, give me an assignment. It's like,
Yeah.
Requesting assignment.
Do your job.
right.
I need you to do your job, please.
Right. So we got about 4 minutes, guys. We can wrap it up. We'll go around the table. You know, great talk. I think it's something that definitely needs to continue to be highlighted, these bread and butter skills. And even though we say bread and butter skills, for somewhere along the line, these things kind of went away, and we stopped training on these things, and it ended up being the best training that you ever got in search was at the training academy. We all know that is, like I say, it is a way, you know, not the way, but you got to get out and you got to train on this stuff. So just go around the table.
Even though it's what time is it? Even though it's 12:45, and we usually record these at 7
at night
p.m., I think you still have to say, well, we're coming down to
the witching hour. To quote Frank Ritchie, coming down to the witching hour.
Coming down to the witching hour, guys. We're gonna go around. Here, I'll do Dave's part for him. All right, guys. Well, we're coming down to the witching hour. We're gonna go around the horn and do one last little bit of tidbits. Jason.
More or less, all of us have been in the fire service for quite a while. There is a newer generation coming up underneath us that is very different than us. We are not going to be around forever. So we need to be able to pass down the things we have learned, both from failures and successes, to the next generation so they learn, they don't get hurt doing this stuff, and we minimize bad outcomes. A lot of that, again, comes down to that mindset, teaching people that, you know, it's a pleasure to be at the firehouse. This shouldn't be like someone dragged you here. Nobody put a gun to your head and said, show up at the firehouse. Whether you're getting paid for it or not paid for it, we should be very happy to be in that firehouse, want to learn, take the initiative, and go from there. Fires are down, more or less across the board, so the only way to make up for that, quality training, finding mentors. I was lucky enough to have a lot of really good mentors coming up, and I think it helped me out quite a bit, but take care of that new generation and get them that experience and that training that they desperately need.
Yeah, my little tidbit is firefighters and line officers, know your job and do your job, and incident commanders, let your guys do their job. Let them work, trust them, and if you don't, fix it.
Mine is just train on these things, understand where people are and how we get to them. Train in building relationships with your team members, train in building relationships with your command officers. Get out to these conferences, FDIC, there's so many classes where you could take on search. Just get out and push yourself to be better every day, to learn how to be good at search.
Return on investment. You got to invest. If you don't invest in yourself, you're never going to have yourself grow. You're not going to be an A-team player if you don't do anything, right? So take advantage of what's out there, your training, your mentor. Come to great conferences like FDIC and just work on yourself. You got to invest somewhere, and why not invest in yourself to make yourself part of that A-team personality?
Hey, we're being recorded. This is live, right? Is video too? Come here. Come here.
Come on, Mark. And while Mark makes his way up here, he's the guy that makes all this work. If you guys have any questions that are watching this or watching it later on YouTube, Feel free to reach out to us. We answer our emails. We'll answer any questions.
We have
So,
25 seconds left, and I want to give a shout out to Mark.
Oh, thanks.
Mark is actually the guy behind the scenes who does the podcasting for Fire Engineering.
he edits the crap out of this stuff. So we
And he takes really good care of us. But I wanted to give a quick shout out to Mark for taking
Mark's
care
the
of
man.
us. Mark is the man.
and Rogue Monkey. Thanks,
Right on top.
guys. Take it easy. Be safe.